Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today I'm going to be playing some Ghostbusters. And why not? It's October now, so time to start playing the horror themed games. I know a lot of YouTubers do it, so it's a little bit cliche, but whatever. We all have fun doing it. um, so yeah, I picked Ghostbusters as my first one, and I've been thinking a lot about, say, Commodore 64 games because, oftentimes I'm watching videos of these YouTubers playing certain games and stuff. And actually, I was just watching the Atari Creeps video today where he was playing Spy Hunter, and I was thinking, I always enjoyed Spy Hunter on the Commodore 64, and it started making me think of other games that I've always enjoyed playing on the Commodore 64. So this one just kind of came to mind. I'm like, it's been a while since I've actually really gave this Ghostbusters game a try. I've played a few times, like say the Atari version, the Atari 2600 version, which is not bad. I mean, I was actually impressed by it, but I really like this one. And I know this has been on a ton of different ports. It's not like the Commodore 64 version is unique or anything like that, or I think it might have been the first computer to have it. I think when the programmer created it, I think it was originally on this one, the Commodore 64. Sorry, I'm just gonna mute that so I don't hear it in the background. But yeah, I mean, this is the one that I grew up with. This is the one that I played like nonstop. If it was, it was either this game or Impossible Mission were the two games I played like almost like regularly on my Commodore 64, and this one always sticks in my mind as being one of the better games that I always enjoyed. So let's see, who do we have in the chat today? So we got Adam Henry, Blitzkrieg, Green Lantern HG. Hey, he made it. Void of Beeswax and Norman the Cat. Okay, cool. All right, let's just restart this. Yes, I use an emulator. I have this on my real Commodore 64, but I don't have a way to stream from my real... But, whatever. It's still the same game. I always loved the intro. I just thought that was awesome. Especially back in, this was what, 87, 88 or something like that, when this game was like... Oh, it was David Crane. I didn't even realize that was David Crane. The guy who made Pitfall. That's cool. Didn't notice that. Yeah, I like that though. You get to watch the bouncing ball, and it goes through the whole Ghostbusters song. Yeah, old style gaming. I love Ghostbusters on the C64. The music is fit while driving. Yeah. I mean, they got the song down perfect. I just love it. I used to watch this too when I was a kid. I'd just like sit there and watch it for a while before I'd start playing the game. Ghostbusters. I do have the Nintendo version of this one too, and I don't like it as much. I don't know why. Alfred Berger. What's going on? I'm doing good. Adam Henry needs milk. You need milk, eh? Are you eating cereal? Anyways, let's start playing the game. That's the other thing that I liked about this game. I liked how you kind of feel like you're starting a business. They kind of like treat it like, hey, you're starting a business and you can put your name in there. Let's see. I don't know if it's going to let me do this whole... Let's try that. Do you have an account? Absolutely not. I used to keep my accounts too when I played this as a kid. I used to write them all down. You get this huge long account number when you play the game all the way through. They give you this number, and then when you play again, you put in the number, and you get all the stuff that you had, like the money. I think that was it. It saved your money in your name or something like that. Or you had to put your name in again. I can't remember. I'm afraid I've only played the arcade game and the Wii version. I didn't know there was an arcade game for the Ghostbusters. Although I am going to be getting the Switch version of Ghostbusters, which is a re-release from the... I guess it came out on the Xbox and PlayStation and all that. And so it's they're re-releasing it on the Switch, and it's coming out on Friday. So we actually have that, pre-ordered. That's gonna be a lot of fun. MC Murr, what's going on, man? I was just watching MC Murr's live cast yesterday. He was doing an interesting Nintendo homebrew called, I think it was Rolly, which looked really cool. It was like a Super Mario Brothers style type of game. Ghostbusters on arcade was one of the big bubble head characters. It was pretty good. I remember I was playing one on my brother's PS4. I think he has a PS4. But it wasn't what I expected. And it had a picture of like the female Ghostbuster proton pack on the box. So I don't know what that was. All right. So press 1 or 2 to purchase a car. Well, I'm going to go ahead with 1 because this is the cheap car. And carries 5 items of cargo. Top speed 75 miles an hour. Boo. Rolly dat raccoon. Yeah, that was it. So yeah, it does kind of run you through these options of different cars. And so you can do this Volkswagen Bug. I think you could do this. I can do this. I could look through the different options. So this is the hearse, the ambulance. Then you can get a station wagon, which is faster. And then you can get this high performance thing. I don't know what the heck it's supposed to be. I don't think I've ever figured out what kind of car that is. If anybody knows, let me know. But well, okay, maybe we can go with 2, because this is always, this is the classic car that the Ghostbusters used. So then you got these options. You got this little forklift guy. You can like pick. That's the PK meter that Egon always used. Image intensifier. I can't remember what the heck these things do. There's like a marshmallow sensor. I think that's supposed to alert you when the Marshmallow Man's going to come a little bit earlier. So let's get this, and move on to our next. So ghost bait. You need ghost bait. If you don't get ghost bait, the Marshmallow Man will always come and crush the city. So you always got to get ghost bait. That's like mandatory. Well, it's not mandatory because it'll let you play without it. The trap is mandatory. So you have to at least buy 1 trap. But I don't like just buying 1 trap because that sucks. Because every time you catch a ghost, you're going to have to go all the way back to Ghost Headquarters. I don't want to have to keep doing that. So I'm probably going to grab 3 of them. 3 is usually good. You catch 3 ghosts, you go back, you replenish. And the vacuum. I always pick up the vacuum. I always like how the picture is at the top there. The PKE meter kind of looks like a little man with arms sticking out, and he looks like he's holding the vacuum. I always thought of that when I was a kid. Like, it's a little man holding the vacuum. And then you got this portable laser confinement system. Now this is kind of cool. This is like basically the confinement thing that they have at the Ghostbusters headquarters, where they shove the trap into and it confines the ghost. It's kind of a way like you buy this thing, and then you only need to have 1 trap, because it literally just makes you have to play with just 1 trap, because every time you catch a ghost you put it in this thing and you don't have to go back to Ghost Headquarters ever. But it costs $8,000, and as you can see, my credit line right now is at $2,100. So you have to at least play the game once, get money, and then come back, and then you can buy that, just like buying the high performance car, which I cannot afford. So let's hit E and go into the world. Now this does look a lot like, say, the Atari 2600. The 2600 version was modeled after this one. David Crane obviously made it, and he probably was involved in the 2600 version too. And you just drive it, but it's also a similar layout to the Nintendo one. The Nintendo driving section is a little bit worse though. You actually got to like steer the frickin' thing, and you got to worry about gas and stuff like that. And of course, it talks through the whole thing. Usually, the next one is like over here. Yeah. It's funny. Like, there's a certain pattern to the Commodore 64. For the first, I think three or four houses, they're pretty much. It's always the same 3 houses, and then after that, I think it becomes randomized or something. And sometimes I like to do this. I like to face them backwards. And then I can do that. Rather than having them facing forward where they can cross the streams, I always felt it was just safer to make them face the opposite direction and shoot up into the corners. Yeah, he slimed me. That was always the fun part about this game, was the talking. You know, again, this and Impossible Mission, both games had talking in it. Coincidentally, were my favorite games. Did you ever play California Raisins on the Commodore 64? I did not know that there was a California Raisins game. Now I'm intrigued. Was that an actual release, or was that a homebrew? So what you can do is you can actually go in and run over the ghosts. And then when you're in this section, after you ran over a ghost, he will appear somewhere on the screen, like there. And you hit the button and you suck him up to your vacuum cleaner. So that's why you need the vacuum cleaner. And it kind of saves the time. Because if you're not familiar with this game, what's happening is all the ghosts are coming from the corners of the screen, and they're going towards Zool. You'll see that ghost up there. He's heading towards Zool. But if you run him over, it pauses him. Like, he won't move again. And then you can go and run over the other guys. But the more you run around the screen, the longer it takes to drive. Oh, I have no empty traps. I gotta go back to Ghost Headquarters. So then when you get into this section, you can suck them up with your vacuum, and it takes them off of that map screen. So now the new ghost has to come. And the reason to do that is because every time a ghost hits the Zool, the city's PK energy goes up higher. And, you know, that's fine because you're going to get closer to the end of the game, but you're not going to get the best amount of, you know, the most amount of points, the most amount of score or whatever, money, because that's less time for you to go out and catch ghosts. So it's kind of a good thing to stop them from hitting Zool. Actual release. Harder than crocodile toenails. Oh, jeez. Okay, I gotta look that up. California Raisins on Commodore 64. So I'm gonna nab some of these ghosts. I like how it shows the dots. You see, in the Atari 2600 version, you obviously don't see the detail in the streets. You don't see the buildings. You don't see, like, the dots don't appear, so you don't know how far you've gone. And also in the Atari version, when you hit one ghost, they all freeze. Because the Atari just didn't have that ability. And then over here, you also got the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. The Keymaster is obviously the key. The Gatekeeper's that lock. They just kind of wander around. They don't do anything. But near the end of the game, they will start to go towards Zool. And if they hit Zool before you do, you pretty much lose. I mean, and it'll happen automatically. There's nothing you could do. Like, pretty much if you get slimed too much, or if you missed, like, too many ghosts, essentially, or if the Marshmallow Man comes and crushes all your cities, your blocks or whatever, they're gonna go to Zool before you, and you lose. Instant loading on the Atari, though. Yeah. So he's an advantage to the Atari. I was quite surprised that this game existed on the Atari. In fact, I didn't know about it for like the longest time. Like, I literally found out about it a couple of years ago, that there was actually a Ghostbusters for the Atari 2600. And once I found out about that, I had to have it. I like literally was like on eBay looking it up, and I found there's actually like a couple of releases of it, I believe, but there was one with the label where the Ghostbuster logo is on the label, and then there was another label which was that blue label that Activision started putting out. I think around the time they started to like get cheaper on their labels and stuff. So I made sure I got myself one with the Ghostbuster symbol on the cartridge. Now, I believe I can hit the space bar and it will tell me. So I have backpack power at 79, 1 empty trap, and 3 men left. So the 3 men left means if you get slimed, you lose a man, and you cannot go and hunt ghosts with one Ghostbuster. So if you lose 2, you got to go back to GHQ and replenish your Ghostbusters. Hey, the Atari creep. Yeah, I was just talking about the creep. Yeah, I was watching his video today on Spy Hunter, and this is what kind of got me wanting to play this one. Was because I was thinking about how much I like Spy Hunter on the Commodore 64, and then I was thinking about other Commodore 64 games, and this one popped into my brain. And I'm like, Ghostbusters. I haven't really played Ghostbusters in a while, like really actually played it. And I'm like, heck, it's Halloween time, it's October time. This is when we start playing like Ghostbusters and Castlevania, and what the other one I want to play is Ghosts and Goblins. Now I haven't played that on the Commodore 64 in a long, long time, and I used to play it. I used to play it a lot when I was a kid. Anyway, I'm gonna shoot Brian's Man Cave. It's 1:30 a.m. here. Oh, jeez, man, get to bed. Thanks for coming in, though. 1:30 in the morning. Yikes. I don't think I'd be awake. I'd be like asleep on my keyboard right now and drooling. Yeah, Ghosts and Goblins, or on some other platforms it's called Ghouls and Ghosts and stuff like that, but it's the same game. And I played it a lot on my Commodore 64, so I don't know if I'm going to be brave enough to try a live stream on it, but maybe I'll just do a video on it. But yeah, and I'm probably terrible at it. Like I said, I used to play it when I was a kid, so it's been a long time since I actually gave it a go. Let's close in on this little nasty critter. I like how each of the places it looks a little bit different. Some of it they just kind of swap the colors. Same time for me, but I'm a night owl. Well, I used to be a night owl when I was younger. When I was a teenager, I could stay up till like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, no problem. Nothing, didn't bother me. Especially also when I was a little bit older and I started working the night shift. Or not the night shift, but the 5 p.m. till like 11. Back when I worked at Wendy's. I remember doing the closing shift, and it would, we'd get out of work around 11, 11:30. I'd get home like midnight, and I'd be so pumped from working, and the last thing I felt like doing was sleeping, so I'd go and play some video games or something. I'd be up all night playing, something online or... Love that sound, it's like... I gotta get the kids to bed. I'll check you back. Like dropped. Alright, thanks MC Murr. If you can come back, that would be cool. If not, take care. It's important to get those kids to bed on time. It's school night. If they're in school. If they're not in school, it's daycare night. Whatever. So as you can see, my PK energy is at 460. Now if I was letting those ghosts go into Zool without catching them, I would probably be closer to 1,000 right now. Because as they keep hitting Zool. So this just kind of prolongs it. Yeah, young, 3 days without sleep, no problem. Now 3 minutes past 9, I'm having trouble waking up in the morning. No, you know what my problem is, and I've kind of noticed this throughout the years, is staying awake. That's like if I'm watching TV, like we'll be like watching TV, watching Netflix or something, and 10:30 rolls around, and I'm starting to feel my eyes getting like my eyelids getting heavy, and sometimes I actually like start to blank out. Like I'm trying to watch a show or I'm trying to watch a movie. It's kind of annoying too, because I wanted to see what's going on. I want to see the ending or whatever, and just all of a sudden my eyes just I can't help it. I just nod off. I'm like, I must be getting old. I don't know. But then again, like we all get up early in the morning and we work a full day's work, and then we come home and then we do a whole bunch of crap at home. So I mean, it makes sense. Like when we were kids and we just had to go to school. That like hell, school? What school? You pretty much fall asleep in school, anyways. Just sit there pretending you're paying attention. It's not like work where you actually have to pay attention. As you can see on the right side there, I got $7,500. Pretty good. What did I start with? 10,000, right? So you start with 10,000, and it's only like 542. The PK meter has to get up to like 9999 or close to it before they you have to go to Zool and fight the big Marshmallow Man. Another thing I always thought was funny about this is there's different kinds of Marshmallow Men. There's the ones that just come in and attack the city, and then at the end there's the final Marshmallow Man where you have to kind of get by him. Only that one's a little bit trickier because you actually have to run underneath him. I've yet to do it on the Atari one. I always lose on that. I always get squished by him. In this one, it's always been a hit and miss. But I've been doing pretty good. I haven't been slimed yet, so that's a good thing. Okay, let's see. So I have backpack power at 81. One empty trap. Okay, so I can catch one more ghost. So the backpack power basically means if you're sitting there and you're just running your streams, eventually they'll run out. Like, you can't just continuously sit there running your stream. And so once it gets down to like 0, then you're pretty much out of power. And if you're fighting a ghost on that scene, the ghost will just slime you and you lose a man. Then you're going to have to go back to GHQ. As you notice, if you've played the NES version, you'll notice there's no gas, there's no obstacles, there's no nothing. It's literally just driving and catching ghosts. I'm just going to sit here and wait for more alarms to go off. Listen to the funky music. Parker, was his name? Ray Parker Jr.? Ray Park Jr.? Something like that. Wonder if he'll be involved in the new Ghostbuster film. That'd be kind of neat. I think he's still alive. Get the original singer for Ghostbusters to do like a kind of a follow-up. Still intrigued about this new Ghostbuster movie that's going to be coming out. Considering it's the one that we wanted for the longest time and never seemed to get. There was the girl one, but Paul Feig or whatever made. Which, as a movie, I didn't find it that bad. But I think I kind of sided with a lot of people saying that it was, I don't know. It should have just been its own thing. It shouldn't have been a replacement of Ghostbusters. I think I just prefer to have the original storyline continue. Whether they blended them into the original lineup or something, I think that's what a lot of us wanted to see. We didn't want to see a brand new storyline from the start. I still remember watching the Angry Video Game Nerds video a long time ago, or whether it was just, it wasn't him as the nerd. I think he was just doing his Cinemassacre thing or something, and he was talking about the just before the movie launched, the girl one, that he wasn't going to see it because he didn't like the idea that this was kind of like replacing essentially the original Ghostbusters and rewriting the story and starting from scratch, and he didn't like that, and he got a lot of hate for that because people were looking at him as being like misogynist or whatever, like saying he didn't like it just because it was girls, and a lot of people actually, that did happen, where people were accusing them of saying they didn't like it because it was girls. That, I don't know, I like, to me it wasn't the girl thing that bothered me, it was the rewriting of the story that bothered me. It was the same problem I had with RoboCop, where they redid RoboCop, and I'm like, was that really necessary to rewrite the story? To recreate it and create a new RoboCop and create a new theme and a new everything, and then and now they've announced that the RoboCop will come back again, the original. So I don't know. Guess it's just the whole thing about rebooting, right? I always had a hard time trying to distinguish the difference between a remake and a reboot. Like, is there an actual difference between that? Or is it just the way you want to say it? Because we've had remakes and we've had reboots. What's the difference? Like, even just recently there was that Child's Play, which I haven't seen yet. There was the reboot or whatever remake of Child's Play. I've yet to see that. Oh no, I'm gonna get slimed. Dang it. Okay, let's just go back and get my man back. But I haven't seen that. And that had, what, Mark Hamill as the voice of Chucky? And they kind of rewrote it. It looked interesting from the trailer. I was never really too much into the original one, so I don't think it's going to bother me too much. Send Zero saying, I didn't mind that they were female Ghostbusters, but I just felt it was an inferior copy of the original movie without really adding enough that... Yeah, well, and that's the other thing, like, the jokes in it and stuff were not... they were not the same kind of jokes as, say, the original Ghostbusters. Like, the original Ghostbusters, the jokes were kind of natural from the actors, whereas the new Ghostbusters jokes seem to be a little bit more on the fart jokes, the pee-pee poo-poo jokes, the easy laugh jokes. Like, they didn't put a lot of work into the jokes. I don't know. Let's catch me this ghost. Atari Creep saying, reboot is part of the original's timeline, where a reboot is the story retold. Well, that makes sense. Seen it was fine on its own, but not as a Chucky movie. Sorry, remake is the story retold. Oh, okay. So a reboot is part of the original timeline, whereas a remake is the story retold. That's where it gets weird, because, like, some of these things, like, they really try to sort of stick to the original story. They just kind of fudge things around, or they change things, or they update it. Like with RoboCop, I think they tried to modernize it too much, where they got more into, say, prosthetics, and they tried to dive into the origin too much. Even, say, Nightmare on Elm Street, which I know is a hit and miss for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that hated the reboot. I still don't know if I like it or not. And I bought it. I went to see it in the theater, and I bought it when it came out on DVD. I bought the movie. And I've seen it a few times, and I'm a big fan of the original Nightmare on Elm Street movies. with Robert Englund. I loved them all. Even the cheesier ones, the later ones. I mean, it's just something about it. But the reboot, or remake, or whatever you want to call it, the one with Jackie what is his name? Jackie Earl Haley or whatever. Surprisingly, the same guy that was also in the RoboCop reboot. I don't know. I'm on the fence about that one. I can care less if they continue that one on and make a sequel or do anything with it. Like, I don't know. It was missing something, and I thought they spent too much time explaining things that didn't need to be explained, and they got too much into like storyline that I don't think anybody gave a crap about. Like, if you notice, like, if you watch the original Nightmare on Elm Street, they really just get into it. It's just literally, it starts off with the nightmare, Freddy's chasing them, they don't know who he is, and they hardly ever know who he is. He just goes and kills, and then he kills, and then he kills. Like, there's like a small scene where the main character, Heather Langenkamp, is speaking to her mother, and she brings up Freddy, and then she gets like a little tiny snippet about how Freddy was a child molester and got off on a technicality, and we trapped him in a building and we burned him to the ground, and that was it. And then she's like, and all we got was his glove, and that was all you got. Whereas in the remake with the new one, they actually went into the full-on details, and they showed how he got caught. They showed how they burned him down. They showed, like, there's just too much. I don't know. It was neat, but at the same time, it felt unnecessary. Generally, I don't have a lot of love for any of these reboots or remakes. Well, yeah, especially when you get this feeling that it's going to kind of rewrite what was already done. And then this was part of the nerds, James Rolfe's argument with Ghostbusters was, by them creating this female Ghostbusters, calling it Ghostbusters, even though there's some versions where it says Ghostbusters : answer the call. He was looking at it like, if they're just going to call it Ghostbusters, they're just going to essentially say that the original didn't exist, that this is Ghostbusters. And now you got this new generation of people that are going to watch the female Ghostbusters saying, well, that's Ghostbusters. The other one is not. And that's what he was worried about. Megadan29, what's going on? Thanks for popping in. Yeah, we're just talking about Ghostbusters. And, but yeah, I mean, I understood where he was coming from. I didn't agree with his whole stance on he's not going to see the movie, he'll never watch it. I thought, I don't know. I'm starting to think he actually probably did end up seeing the movie, but I'm sure that was his stance at the time, going, I'm not going to go and see it. I mean, sure, I wasn't too crazy about the idea of them replacing the original Ghostbusters, but I still went to see it. I mean, whatever. Same with, RoboCop. Well, actually, I didn't go to see RoboCop in the theater. I actually waited for it. I always wanted to see this game played. Yeah, this one's actually... Well, this is the one I grew up with. I mean, I'm going to have a bias on this one because I grew up with this one. This is the one I played. I didn't really play the Nintendo version until much later. And I didn't really care for the Nintendo version, even though it's very similar to this. I actually like the Atari 2600 version over the Nintendo one. And I don't like how that scene, or that section where you have to run up the building, requires you to have like one of those turbo controllers or whatever, or else you cannot possibly pass it. And then you get to the top, and then you have to still fight that Gozer. If there is anyone to blame for that, it would be Bill Murray. I think you're right. Ooh. Oh, no, I didn't get... Ah. Dang it. Got slimed. Yeah, I think Bill Murray did hesitate. In fact, I think we got kind of cheated out of a third Ghostbuster movie that could have been awesome. because around the time when everybody was like saying, we want another Ghostbuster movie, and Dan Aykroyd, I believe, was on board with it since, forever. It was Bill Murray that was like hesitating, and I'm pretty sure they didn't want to do it without him. And so we kind of had a lost opportunity there. And then unfortunately, we lost Harold Ramis, and I'm still curious how they're gonna pull off this new Ghostbuster movie, which is supposed to be related to the original storyline, without Egon. Like, are they going to explain that, or are they going to say he died or something? Like, they're definitely not going to replace him. So I don't know what they're going to do. Or maybe they won't kill him off. Maybe they'll just say he left. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. See what goes on with this new Ghostbusters movie, and if it's done right. It's being done by Jason Reitman, I believe his name is. Was he the son of Ivan Reitman, the guy who did the original Ghostbusters? I think this movie, though, this new one, is going to probably be a passing of the torch. Just like they thought, like a lot of people thought a third one would be the passing of the torch, where the older Ghostbusters are retiring and a new breed of Ghostbusters has to come in. So we'll see. They couldn't do it without Bill. He owned a part of it and had a say if there would be anything Ghostbusters. So that makes sense. I mean, he was a big character. I mean, he did play a big role in the movie, even though originally he wasn't slated to be in it. It was supposed to be John Belushi, according to what Aykroyd had said in the past about the original Ghostbusters. Yeah, the Extreme Ghostbusters. That was like another thing that kind of came out. I like the graphics here. Yeah, the graphics are cool. I always love the graphics of this game. And the simplicity of it. Like, this game is not complicated. It's not like, you have to be like a skilled gamer to play it. It's nice and simple and fun. Okay, I'm gonna catch these ghosts. Like I said in the beginning, if you catch them... Oh no, I have no more empty traps. I'm gonna go back to GHQ. The cartoon in the 90s, Extreme Ghostbusters, always gave me the idea of a third movie. Should have been with the kids with the original. Well, also, the game that came out, the one that's also just coming out on the Switch, I think it's also going to be released on Xbox and everything else. They say that that's pretty close to being almost like a third Ghostbusters. Like, it's got all the original cast's voices in it, and it's got like their images and stuff, and it's got a whole storyline. They kind of did the same thing with the Back to the Future game, where it kind of feels like it's a movie more than a game. So I'll be curious to check that one out when I get it. Like, we have it pre-ordered, and yeah, I'll be interested to see what it's like. I know it was released a while ago on, I don't know which Xbox and which PlayStation, I'm not sure. I do remember when it first came out, it looked cool, but I didn't have any system that could play it, so I didn't care. But now I have the Nintendo Switch, and it's going to be released on, well, at least here, it's going to be released on Friday, so can't wait to check that out. I know it's more of a story than a game, but whatever. Still kind of cool. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's the only downside of doing it this way, where you shoot inverted like this, is if the ghost goes beyond the stream, You kind of have to wait for him to come over, and if you wait too long, he kind of gets away. Or you run out of power, and then... Ah, crap. That's the problem with only having 3 traps. I'm doing pretty good, though. I got $18,500. And I'm only at, like... close to 4,000. But you notice the ghosts are going faster now. As the PK energy is going up, the ghosts are going faster. Eventually they'll be going so fast you won't be able to catch them, or you'll be lucky if you catch them. And then that's when the Marshmallow Man will start appearing. And to get the Marshmallow Man, you have to hit the... On the Commodore 64, you have to hit the B button, which I always assumed was for bait. B for bait. And then you stop them. If you play this on the Atari 2600, you have to toggle the difficulty switch, which I always thought was weird, but... So you always have to be ready to toggle that switch, which means you better be sitting in front of your Atari 2600 when you're playing this game. Kind of like with the Commodore 64, where you're sitting in front of the keyboard. But I always thought that that was more natural. When you're playing on a Commodore 64, you're usually playing in front of the keyboard. When you're playing on an Atari, you're not always in front of it. It could be on your coffee table, it could be on the floor, depending on how long your joystick cords are. Not everybody sits right in front of their Atari. Uh-oh. He's over there. Come on, dude. You're wasting my time, man. Uh-oh. Okay. There we go. Got him. Let's catch these guys. Oh, crap. They're going too fast. Ah, I got no more empty traps. Hey, Brian, what do you know about YouTube in January? The getting catalog as a kid if they think your content is for kids. I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know what constitutes making your content for kids. Is it because you don't swear? Evil Ubuntu. What's going on? Ah, crap. Okay, I think there's going to be a Marshmallow Man coming at some point. Usually after 5,000 on the PKE meter. That's around the time he starts to show up. Also around this time, that's when the ghosts will not stick around at the location very long. Ah, crap. So at this point, you gotta have your finger ready on the B button. Because once you see the ghosts start flying towards a certain building, that means they're gonna be like that. And it says there, Marshmallow Alert, but I mean, it happens so fast. You just gotta be ready. Mayor awards you 2,000 for preventing a Marshmallow Man catastrophe. Thank you. $2,000. So at this point, it's just going to go faster and faster. So eventually, we're just going to get to the... But what that means is Oh, the ghost ran away. There we go. Caught him. If you watch a video like a new toy review, YouTube will log you in as a child. Oh. Well, I know on things like Netflix, they have those options where there's like kids version and then there's adult version. But I didn't know YouTube was doing that. That's kind of weird. So then you can kind of get pigeonholed into like, I only do kids content. Which is unfortunate for people like us, like people like me anyways, that I would say my demographic is pretty much people in their 30s. 30s and 40s. Men. So I don't think a lot of kids are watching my content. And any of us other YouTubers that, you know, talk about Atari and television and Nintendo, a lot of these kids, you know, they, especially, well, even just the younger teenagers and the little, you know, the millennials, where they sit there and they call, like, Nintendo 64 retro. I'm like, how's that retro? They call old school games, and they're talking about, like, PlayStation 1. I'm like, how's that old school? Oops. Yeah, that was a mistake. I meant to turn him around. Oh, I caught him! I caught him. I find that catching him is a little bit harder on the Atari than it is on the Commodore. The Atari, it's really fast when he goes into, like, Marshmallow mode. Whereas on the Commodore 64, it seems to be, like, a little bit slower. I enjoy the nostalgia stuff from the 80s. Exactly. Oops, got away. Well, look at that, I'm at $30,000 already. Tripled my money. So pretty much I'm going to be at the part where the Marshmallow Man is going to be in front of Zool. And it's going to say go to Zool. You'll see it kind of flash at the bottom. You'll see also the gatekeeper and the keymaster heading towards Zool. See, there they go. They're heading. But then it's going to tell me to go there. And it just automatically pulls you in. So you don't even have to do anything. And there he is. So what you have to do is you actually have to get into that door. So you gotta be like ready. Oh no! Stupid Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Okay, let's see if I can do it. I hate this. I hate this. Oh no no no! Good try, Brian's man. Brian's man. Didn't even get the cave in there. But you failed to close the portal. Keep the spirit world and Zool has taken over your city. There is no Dana, only Zool. So this is the part where you like kind of write that down. So it's like 425462000. I don't know if I have to do it again or if I can continue on. I think I can continue on if I hit F3. Ah, whatever. Yeah. So I got 32,200. So now I can buy a faster car. Does only the NES version have the stairs section? Maybe. I don't know. I also have the Sega Master System one, which I bought a long time ago, or maybe a year ago. I bought the Sega Master System version, and I haven't played it yet. It's still in the basement. It's still in the box. I haven't put it into my Sega Master System. I haven't even plugged in my Master System, but yeah, I'm going to check that one out too, but I don't think it is in that. I think maybe the Nintendo added that one in there. So should I go for the high performance? Well, let's see. Yeah, well, I got 32,200, and it's only 15,000. So let's do it. So I got the high performance vehicle. Now I can go real fast. Sure. Let's buy that. I also want to buy the... I never buy those things. I don't even know what they do. I'm going to buy the bait. I'm going to buy one trap. I'm going to buy the vacuum, of course. And I'm going to buy this fancy portable laser confinement system, which I talked about in the very beginning, because it's $8,000, so you can pretty much never buy it on your first go-around. And this means you never have to go back and replenish a trap. I didn't think you had a master system. Oh yeah, I do. I did a few videos on the Sega Master System, probably about a half a year ago, maybe a year ago. I can't remember. And I did play a bunch of games. I did kind of talk about it. Ryan, exactly like the movie when they had the purple high-powered car. Yeah, exactly. Well, I did play the hearse already, so I figure let's go with some high power this time. I used to always like that. Once you complete the game, then you can get yourself the nice fast car. Well, I'm not actually sure if it really does make a difference. You'll see how fast it goes compared to, say, the hearse. No idea what kind of car it is, but some kind of fancy sports car. Well, it'd be kind of weird seeing the Ghostbusters pull up in like a Ferrari or something like that. Like, where do they put all their equipment? Like, the reason why they use the hearse is because they can put everything into the hearse and, all their backpacks and all that stuff. Yeah, now we styling. This one's purple. I don't know if that means it's gonna go red. Still not sure what it means by the purple. I think maybe that's the PKA meter or something. Something that makes it go purple like that. Of course, when I played this game back when I was a kid, I never had a manual. I literally had to figure all this stuff out just by playing it. We didn't have, well, we did. There was magazines and stuff, but when I was a kid, I didn't get all those magazines. I still have my Computes Gazette, my Commodore 64 Computes Gazette magazine that has an advertisement for this game. But, I never saw actual, rules or how to play this game. It was literally just playing it and just figuring it out. And that's how most of the Commodore 64 games, I had. I never had manuals. It was always, and there was no tutorials. If you notice a lot of games today, they have tutorials in them. In the game. It actually tells you in the game when you're about to do something. It'll tell you what's going on. That never happened in 64 days, or even Atari, or most of the old games didn't give you anything. They just, here's the game. Hope you can figure it out. So a lot of it was trial and error. Probably the hardest thing for me to figure out when I was a kid was using the bait and trying to understand what the hell that meant. It would have been a case of me hitting every friggin' button going, what do I do? What do I do? Of course, on the Atari 2600, having to figure out to use the difficulty switch, I actually had to learn about that one. I went on Atari Age. I couldn't even start the damn game when I first got my Atari 2600 Ghostbusters. I put it in, and I'm like, how do I start the game? It was literally stuck on that one screen. I'm pushing the button. I'm like, I don't get it. Then I looked it up, and it was you had to use the other difficulty switch just to start the game. I was like, oh crap. That wasn't intuitive at all. So now that I have that containment system, I never have to go back to Ghost headquarters to refill my trap, but I still need to go back to refill the proton pack. There's nothing that's going to prevent that from draining, so you can actually see 99%. I don't think it drains. Well, let's find out. I'm pretty sure you still need to deal with that. But that, it takes a long time to drain the proton pack. It's not like the traps. The traps are limited to how many ghosts you catch, right? Whereas the proton pack is how long you're running that stream. Atari got very creative with their limited controllers. Yeah, and it's interesting about the Atari was that the 2600 was fully capable of handling a ton of buttons. They could have easily created a controller much like the Xbox and had buttons all over the place, but I think the mentality back then was that people aren't going to understand how to use a controller that had multiple buttons. So they just didn't do it. But the system had the capability. Because if you think about it, there's the keypad games. And I think I remember reading that the Atari can understand up to about 30 different buttons. So they had the keypad buttons and all that. They had the keypad controllers for the kids' games and the basic programming and all that. It's just that they made a decision that the standard joystick for the Atari was only going to have the one button. Because they probably felt like, why would you need more than one button? And then I guess they were stuck with only creating games with one button. So the homebrew people, the people that are making homebrew video games for the Atari, they're like, well, we can create games that have multiple buttons because we know people can now use say a Sega Genesis controller or like what I'm using, has multiple buttons, and you can map those buttons. So something like, say, on the 2600, you can play Princess Rescue, which is the Super Mario Brothers clone. Well, not really a clone, but it's a Super Mario Brothers game, and it requires two buttons, or it uses two buttons. So, alright, take care, Green Lantern. Thanks for popping in. Glad you actually made it from the beginning this time. I know oftentimes you come in on the end and you're like, damn, missed it. Yeah, their first arcade cabinet did have a few buttons. That was, what was that? That was like a space thing or something like that, and it had a bunch of buttons. And they were like, obviously this was all new to people. Video games was new to people. It's not like today where video games has a long history and people understand all this stuff. This was new. Like, you're literally teaching people about video games and what they do and how they work, and the average person is going to look at something as simple as the Atari joystick and still get confused. So, I mean, they kind of made a smart move. And then the Intellivision came along and said, here's a full-blown keypad that looks like a telephone. Good luck. Megadan, are you using OG hardware? No, not for my streams. For my streams, I just stick to emulation because it's the only way I can get it working, for me. I do have this on my original Commodore 64 in my man cave in the basement down there. But yeah, I don't have a way to stream off the original hardware right now. I don't have any kind of fancy capture devices and all that stuff. Which is why if you watch my videos, if I do anything like, well, a lot of Atari stuff and just a lot of my videos, I stick to the standard point the camera at the screen on my original CRT TV, and it's just the only way I can figure it out to do it right now. Grumpy Driver, what's going on? Computer Space, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I knew it was like a space game. And then they made Pong, I think. Wasn't Pong like the second one or one of the and Pong didn't use any buttons. It just had those little roller things to control the paddle. I don't know if there was a game in between. I know that there's a lot of that history. You kind of have to look it up. Keep it simple. Well, the other thing I kind of like about using an emulator is like when I stream, like this is uncommon for me to stream a single game. Normally I like to do a whole bunch of different games. Like when I do my Atari streams, which is like the one I usually enjoy doing the most, I like to just jump between games really fast, and using an emulator, it's easier. I just click on the game and there I go. If I had the system hooked up and stuff, I'd have to have all my cartridges sitting out and I have to sit there and change the cartridge and all that. So I just find that this is just easier to just do. I'm not a purist. I love cartridges. I love original hardware. I'm a big, fan of the originals. I really prefer playing on the originals, but I seriously have no problem playing emulation either. I just like the game. Whether I play it on an original or not, I don't care. So I'm at $12,200. I gotta make all my money back after buying that fancy car and all those fancy equipment. Almost space bar, but same difference. Whatever. Back in the Nolan Bushnell days. Actually, I was watching this. That reminds me now, because I recorded it on my my PVR thingy. There was this show on, I think it was History Television or something like that. It was one of those stations, and it was talking about the history of, I don't know if it was Atari or Activision. I think it was, or the first video games or something. It was just randomly on TV. And I kind of, I saw it there, and I came in the middle of it. I started watching it. I think it was what brought down the video game, or what created the video game crash, or something like that. And I started watching it, and it was Nolan Bushnell was being interviewed, and they were talking to a lot of the programmers, and they were kind of going through the whole history of the original video games. And so I watched the kind of like the middle section all the way up to the end. And I recorded it because I saw it was on at a later time, like in the middle of the night, so I set it to record the whole thing. I need to go back and watch the beginning, because I'm pretty sure it runs through the history of video games, which was pretty cool. Pretty cool seeing something like that on TV. Like I know you can find a lot of this stuff on the internet, but to actually see it like played on the TV, learning about the history of video games and what's happened, what happened with the crash and the programmers, and a lot of this was like a lot of interviews with Nolan Bushnell himself, and how he looked at it, and it was pretty cool. I can't remember what it was called. I think it had something to do with looking into the history of video games. It was like right up my alley. And I just happened upon it too. I literally just went and I turned on the TV. I just started like channel surfing, and I saw it there. I'm like, what the heck is this? Because I know they had that Atari Game Over. They had that on Netflix. I don't think it's on anymore. And that was about the I think that was about the landfill thing with the ET game and all that stuff. That was cool too. I really liked that. They were talking about the history of video games and how, the crash happened and the oversaturation in the marketplace and all that crazy crap. Yay! Oop. There's a house up there that has a ghost. Whee. Yeah, there's not much you can do on the screen other than catch ghosts, so. Easy to play, hard to master was the documentary. There was 2 around that time. Easy to play, hard to master. I don't think that was the one I saw, though. That sounds interesting. I'm gonna have to go back now and see what it is, because I did have it recorded, so. And I totally forgot about it up until now. Because I wanted to watch the beginning of it, because I think they do go over the guy who created like the very first video game ever. which was like that little space game, and then he created like a tennis game. Sort of like what Atari did, you know, where they started off with a space game and then they moved into a Pong game. That one is on Amazon Prime. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have Amazon Prime, so I definitely didn't see that one. I think actually someone sent me a link to that. I think it was Mr. Toon? Maybe that was the one I saw on YouTube or something like that. The early video game stuff is cool. I'm reading about Ralph Baer. Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of great history. I mean, and there's like, you know, there's a bunch of good stuff out there. Another good one is The King of Kong. I really enjoyed that one. I know there's been some debate over how accurate it is and if some of it was kind of like rehearsed or scripted. But I really like that because Donkey Kong is like probably my favorite game of all time, and you know, to have a movie based on the battle between who's going to be the champion of Donkey Kong, and it had Billy Mitchell and, you know, what's his face, the jeez, I just forgot his name. Yeah, King of Kong is awesome. Steve Wiebe. I don't know why I forgot his name. It was, you know, Steve Wiebe. Yeah. Like, I know I have him on Facebook. I actually I friended him on Facebook a long time ago. I haven't seen him actually on Facebook in a while, so I don't know if he's still there, or if he's still active, or... I used to see his posts all the time, and same with Walter Day. I know I'm friends with Walter Day on Facebook. He's a cool guy. I've talked to him actually a few times over the internet. I haven't actually met any of these people in real life. You don't run into these people when you live in Canada. I think the other documentary was called Game Changers. That might be it. I don't know. I can't remember what it's called. It's just another one of those kind of running over the history of Atari. They were talking to a lot of the Atari programmers and the Activision programmers, and they were saying, like, you know, having that job was the best job ever. They had to, you know... Have you even been noticing on, even on Atari Age and stuff, like some of the... They're talking about the Activision programmers like Gary Kitchen and Dan Kitchen and David Crane and, you know, some of the original Activision programmers. And I was actually talking to Daniel Kitchen, who is a programmer, or was a programmer with Activision. His brother Gary Kitchen created Keystone Capers, and I was chatting with him, and he says he likes my videos, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And so he's Dan Kitchen is actually working on a sequel to Keystone Capers, which I'm really excited to see. Like, I know he's kind of taking it in a different direction, but, you know, the same characters. But I'm really excited to see. He said it's not done yet, but he's working on it. I love that you play these old games, man. Yeah, well, to me they're not old games. These were the things I played all the time when I was a kid. So to me they're just games, but yeah, I can see that they're old games now. I'm old, so yeah. But I like these games. I liked how they were simple. I like how they were fun, and you didn't, you know, they don't require tons and tons of reading of tutorials just to understand them. And for what system? What do you mean, creep? Are you talking about the Keystone Capers? If you're talking about Keystone Capers, or the sequel to Keystone Capers, I believe it's going to be the Atari 2600. He's still making games for that. So that's from what I understood, anyways. It's going to be an Atari 2600 game. Actually, if you go to Dan Kitchen's website, I think it's just dankitchen.com or something. Type in, you go into Google or whatever, type in Dan Kitchen, you might find his website there. And he talks, he's got a whole website where he's talking about the sequel to Keystone Capers and how he kind of took over from his brother's work of the first one. Nice to see some C64 on your channel. Yeah, I love the C64. I mean, this was my childhood. C64 and Intellivision. I didn't start playing Atari until much later. Keystone 2. Oh. Things were experimental and cool back then. Now it's all made by a committee for strictly the safest business decision. Yeah. Well, that's another thing, too. I mean, a lot of these games, a lot of the original games, there was really only one person behind it. And maybe two. Like, they might have had some help, say, with the music or something. Like, maybe they went to somebody else to compose the music. But you think of, like, David Crane, who made this game, who also made Pitfall. He pretty much designed the game himself. Like, he had to come up with the idea. He had to come up with the, you know, the inspiration. He had to develop the characters. He had to code it. He had to figure out how to make it work on the Commodore, or the Atari, I mean. And back then, making games for the Atari wasn't easy. It's not like today. I mean, a lot of developers have it easy. They have these systems, these you know, GUI interfaces and stuff, and you know, lots of ways, like code that's already written for them. Back then, they had to like literally code for the Atari the hard way, and the limitations the system had. So David Crane did a really good job, like creating games that were mind-blowing and yet worked on the Atari. It wasn't easy, and he was one of the big guys behind Activision. And if you know much about Activision, you know that they were all original Atari employees who said enough is enough. We're not getting any recognition. We're not getting the pay we deserve. We're being treated like crap. And you know, to the Atari Corporation people, they felt that, you know, the programmer is no different than the guy who shrink wraps the game, you know, on the assembly line, which is bull. I mean, like, how can you compare the guy who came up with the game, who had the talent to program it, create the characters, make it work, make the game the way it is, to the guy who just takes the cardboard box and shrink wraps it? Like, how can you do that? That just shows that the corporations really didn't know what the hell they were doing. They were just looking for the almighty dollar, which is sad. It's always sad when you hear that with video games. You know, people just looking at the dollar. Shoot me some ghosts. And things were experimental and cool back then. Now it's all made by minis. Yeah. The C64 was a great gaming machine, especially in Europe. Yes, for sure, Europe. In fact, Europe didn't even have the video game crash. They don't even know what the hell we're talking about when we say video game crash. Many games still being produced today for the system. Yeah, true. Oh, I'm losing the ghosts here. But many of them are also sold as ROMs. Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, a lot of people are using emulation. You got the C64 Mini that came out. There's going to be another C64 Mini. It's going to have a keyboard. But, I mean, emulation is... I mean, if you think about it, it's the way to go, because a lot of the original systems are failing. They're hard to get your hands on. If you're a young guy and you didn't grow up in that era, chances are you're not going to have an original And so that's why I don't have a problem with emulation. You know, it keeps the games going. I'd rather have emulation than just have everything die out with the systems. Of course, there are still, you know, people who can recreate the systems or, you know, rebuild them or whatever, fix them with modern parts, but I mean, it's getting scarce now. Got to go pick up my daughter for volleyball practice. Cool. Alright, thanks a lot, Ryan, for coming in. Always a pleasure having you. Ryan's a big supporter of the show. He even bought one of my sweatshirt things. That was kind of cool. I saw it on Twitter. He had a picture of himself wearing a sweater with Brian's Man Cave on it. And he's a fellow Patreon. I mean, I don't typically advertise all that stuff, but, you know, it's cool when people do jump in on that. Eat me some ghosts. I own an Ultimate 64. It's a brand new C64 that works with FPGA. I don't know what that means, but that sounds kind of neat. You know, one thing I always thought would have been cool to have would have been a Commodore 128, I think it was called. The 128. And it can actually go into C64 mode. But then I heard that because they're a little bit more scarce, that they're not easy to repair, that there's not too many of them out there, and you're just better off going with an original. Oops, that was a mistake. With an original C64. And I'm gonna get slimed. I still remember buying the, or I remember when the second generation of Commodore 64 came out. It was kind of like this different shaped keyboard. I think it was white. It was wider. It was thinner. I remember when that came out. I don't think I ever. I don't remember if I ended up buying that or not. The problem I always had with the Commodore 64 was the disk drive. My disk drive kept failing on me. My original one from when I was a kid. It kept failing on me, and I had to keep going and getting it repaired. And I think I went twice to a computer store to get it repaired, and then finally it was like, you know, my mom was just like, it's not worth it to keep going. And I think at the time I was, you know, oh no. I think that was when the Nintendo was out, and I was into Nintendo at the time or something, and she's just like, you know, just get rid of it. Which I did. I ended up getting rid of my original Commodore 64 and all my original games that I had for it. Not my copied games, my original, like the sold off the shelf games, not the games I had copied on to, like, you know, blank discs. I still own those today, but that was when I got rid of my, and I got rid of my Intellivision as well. At that time, my original Intellivision. And all the games I had for it, except for Donkey Kong, which I kept and still have today. Although I don't know which one is my original one, because I have two copies now of Donkey Kong, and I don't know which one's my original one and which one's the second one, but whatever. I'm not going to get rid of them anyway, so it doesn't matter. As you can see, we're at 2300 now. PKE is starting to go crazy. FPGA uses hardware emulation instead of software emulation. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh. No, no. Oh, no. Ah, crap. My high performance car is not performing. There we go. I was too far over by the time I got to the other side. I don't know, maybe it's just the emulation, but it doesn't seem like that high performance car is going as fast as I remember it from playing it on the original. So it could just be the emulation. You know, that's always the downside to the emulation, is it's never going to be as good as the original hardware, no matter what. And that's what makes games like, say, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Or Punch-Out! On Nintendo next to impossible to beat on an emulator. I'm sure there's some people who have done it, but I mean, the timing on that... Oh, crap. Timing on that has to be precise. What, I get slimed like 3 times already? Jeez. It's basically a chip that can be programmed to act as original hardware. Oh. The one thing I always thought was cool was that device you can buy. It's like an SD card reader that you can plug into a real Commodore 64 and kind of essentially bypass having to use the disk drive, and then you can just put them onto this SD card reader and run it off of that. I was kind of curious about that, and you know, that might be a route I'll go if my real disk drive dies on me, because the chances of me being able to get a replacement disk drive without going on, say, eBay and, you know, dealing with the whole shipping thing and hoping it survives the shipping, and if it's an old one, how long is that one going to last and stuff like that. So, might be something I'll look into maybe in the future. I don't know. Of course, I'm still debating if I want to try and get my hands on another VIC-20. Because I have a VIC-20, but it doesn't seem to work right now. It's it just goes to a blank screen when I turn it on. So I think one of the chips inside is fried, which is a shame, because I wanted to do a video with VIC-20 and talk about VIC-20 and all that stuff, and when I plugged it in to do the video, I got nothing. So I was like, crap. So I've been slowly kind of, you know, checking every once in a while, Kijiji and stuff, and seeing if anybody's getting rid of one. You know, somebody just, you know, puts it up for sale. I've looked on eBay, but, you know, the price people are going to ask, plus, you know, the shipping costs, it does get a little bit crazy. People are going to ask for, like, you know, $60 shipping and $100 and something for the unit in American, and translate that into Canadian, it's going to be like, you know, $300 by the time I get it to my doorstep. Just for a VIC-20, it doesn't seem worth it. Especially knowing that I can just emulate it anyways. But I do still have a lot of cartridges for it, like original cartridges. Those, you know. Dang it. What was it, slimed 4 times now? That's not good. Let's get this done. This is Strange Games. You can reach the end section by just sitting there and waiting for all the ghosts to reach. Yeah, you can, but if you don't do anything, you're not going to get anywhere. So even if they do end up going to Zool, you're not going to make any money. And chances are the Keymaster and Gatekeeper will go there first before you, and you'll lose the game. So you kind of have to do something. You should join TPUG, Toronto Pet Users Group, one of the oldest users group in G2. We have many people. I think I've heard of that. I remember being in contact with somebody. I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but I remember being in contact about that with my VIC-20 and saying that there, you know, there's a possibility of getting it repaired and all that. Strange to this thing was that, you know, the VIC-20 that I have, it did work fine, and then I put it away. I had it in a storage container, so like I wasn't even using it, and when I pulled it out to do the video one day, it just wasn't working. I couldn't get it to work. I tried a whole bunch of things. I tried different wires. I even tried hooking up to a monitor instead of my TV. Nothing. And I'm like, it just literally just died, just sitting there in a box. Like, which is strange, but perhaps one of the parts just got, you know, kind of decayed or whatever, or the chip just went. Yeah, it probably was you. I think it was you. Definitely not doing as good on this game as I did on my first game. I only have $28,000. I have less than my starting total. Oh crap. Oh crap, and I keep getting slimed.
He slimed me.
Who knows? Maybe if I pass the Marshmallow Man on this one, if I make it, and I didn't get slimed too many times. Crap, I think I have to go back to GHQ. That's not good. Okay, so I passed 30,000, but still didn't do very good. I pretty much got myself back up to where I started, which is not optimal in this game. It's just like any other business, you want to make money, right? But I think if you beat the Marshmallow Man at the end, the gatekeeper's already at Zool. If the Keymaster goes in there, I'm screwed. I think he was going towards there. See what happens. I know sometimes the ghost can just take off on you and then... Alright, so I caught him. I think it's going to call me to Zool. Yep. Strange too, because I still had, what, another 2,000 to go. Now, I think there's two ways you can do this. You can try and go up between his legs, which I think that's a little bit more of a dangerous route. I'm going to try and do this, because I know I'm going to have to, like... Ah, no. You can do it. You can do it. I don't know if it's easier to go this way. Oh. Thought I could do it. I failed. Oh well. That was a good go though. You made more money than you started with. Not very much though. I think I had what, 31,000 or something. So really I didn't do too much. I didn't do too well actually on this one at all. I think I was, you know, I made like a smidge. I probably made like $1,000, which is, you know, pretty crappy. Designed by David Crane, cracked by TBC. Damn. Yeah. Yeah, it was damn alright. Oh, I got close. I mean, at least I made it that far. Could have been worse. I know there's been times where I've actually played this and I've gotten slimed a few times and didn't make it to the end. I would try to go in between. Yeah, maybe I should have done that. Maybe I should have just... I don't know. It's a timing thing. And like I said, I've played this on the Commodore or on the Atari 2600 a few times, and I've never passed that Marshmallow Man. It's just on the Atari, he's just bouncing too far, and it's like, it's the timing. And because you don't get a lot of chances to play it, right? You have to go through the whole game just to get to there, and then you get 2 chances, and if you lose, then you got to start all over again. So it's not like, you know, I'm not using save states or whatever. I probably could. I guess it's an emulator, so I could probably use like a save state or a snapshot or something, and, you know, keep trying and trying. But I don't want to do that. I don't have enough patience for that type of stuff, and I just don't care, you know, to use the save states and all that. I know some people like to do it on the retro games like Castlevania and all that. But anyways, yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for coming in. So we had Mega Dan in there. We had Nostalgic for the 70s and 80s. Who else? We had Zen Zero. I know we had Ryan J. Navarro. And we had the Atari Creep. What else do we have in here? I know we had Grumpy Driver and MC Murr came in. Green Lantern HG. Blitzkrieg. A lot of cool guys. Evil Ubuntu. Anybody I missed? Old Style Gaming. We got a lot of cool people in here. I was kind of wondering if anybody would even come in today. Adam Henry. I forgot about Adam Henry. He was in the beginning. He was like the first one in. But and Void of Beeswax too. Norman the Cat. So we had a lot of people in the chat today. That was really cool. A lot of good fun there. Yeah, Megadan's like hashtag no save states. I remember seeing a few YouTubers talking about save states, and it always seems to get mixed reviews. Some people are like, that's great, and then other people are like, eh. I always look at it as like the younger generation don't have the patience that we had when we were kids. When games didn't have save states. Geez, most of the games we played when we were kids didn't even have a save at all. Didn't even have a continue button. So, to think of save states is like, I'm going to save it here, and then if I die, I'm just going to go back and then try it again. That was like unheard of. Like, yeah, we had continues and stuff, but even in the earlier days, the continues would wear out. Not many games had endless continues. And saving games was, like Zelda or whatever would do it, but anyways, thanks everybody for coming in. Tomorrow I will be putting out another video. I'm not sure which one. I know I did my video games that start with Q. So if you haven't checked that out, you should go check it out. I had a special guest, the No Swear Gamer, on. That was a lot of fun. And talked about all games that start with Q. But I have a lot of other things. I don't know if I should do another video game video, or maybe I should do a toy video. Because I do have one, another favorite toys video that I've recorded. So maybe I can do that one, just to change it up, because I've been doing a lot of video game content. I also like to talk about toys, too. So maybe I'll throw that in there. And I know Green Lantern loves toys, so I'm sure he'll enjoy it. But yeah, I got still a ton of games to do. A lot of Atari games. What do I got? Some arcade games down here. I got a whole list of stuff. Anyways, yeah. Thanks for coming in, and we'll talk to you later.